From being the VP of Marketing to quitting corporate America to shape tomorrow's entrepreneurs, Professor Claudette Shatto is the definition of betting on yourself. She's built brands, run college programs, and now even published books. In this episode, we dive into the mindset of Claudette and what it takes to be a successful marketer, entrepreneur, and boss woman. All right, guys, welcome back. We're here with another episode with Claudette Shatto, Professor Shatto, which is many things, entrepreneur, author, business owner. What else do we have? What am I missing? Mama, most importantly, yeah, right?
Well, it's a big part of my journey for sure.
Okay, well, we're going to get into that today. You guys see her book here. We're going to get into what she's an author of, what she talks about, and that information will be down below in the description.
Thank you.
But first and foremost, just start and talk to us a little bit about yourself.
First and foremost, I am a mama. It is my most important role in who I am, and what took me on a journey to write a children's book is definitely inspired by my children. The job that pays the bills is I'm a professor at Napa Valley College. Glad to have you here today.
That's
Welcome
where we are.
Back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We are at River Trail Village, which is the student housing. I'm also an author of a children's book. I am a keynote speaker and also do custom workshops.
Many things.
I can keep going, but those are the main things, I think.
So backtracking to something I really like to explore is people's backgrounds, right? Like, how did you end up with this drive and the pursuit of wanting to be a business owner, entrepreneur?
So starting with that, I'm not one thing, and as a child, so you ask, like, where does this come from? I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. In my day, that wasn't what it was called. It wasn't called an entrepreneur. Maybe you were a business owner. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I just knew I wanted to make money.
Fair.
I knew I liked money. I knew I liked spending money. I knew I liked making money. And that started at an early age. I have a brother who's 7 years younger than me. So I was dialed in as a babysitter.
Okay.
I mean, every weekend I had gigs and I made really good money as a teen, as a tween. That really, I think, is what sparked the interest in making money, but also definitely learned how to be an entrepreneur as a babysitter, just starting that young.
And then from babysitting, you go to college.
Yeah.
And what made you pursue going to college versus, I guess, you're getting a taste of entrepreneurship early on, you're not chasing something like down that road?
Well, because I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. Both of my parents actually worked in corporate America, or my dad worked for a small business, but they both had a steady paycheck. So I didn't have a model of what entrepreneurship was. I just knew that I wanted to be wealthy and I wanted to make a lot of money. And so how else do you do that but to go to college and get a college education and pursue the college route? I'm first generation college graduate. I didn't know that until I came and was in academia, but that is a thing. But when I reflect back on what it means to be a first generation college graduate, I had to navigate that path myself. And again, this is pre-internet. I went to the college before I could just Google it, and we didn't have MapQuest, we certainly didn't have AI, but this is literally before the internet. So I had to have that resilience, have that tenacity, have that entrepreneur mindset to pursue something that was completely foreign to both my parents. They didn't know how to navigate the system. And again, there's no internet to figure out how to navigate the system. That was really my path, and my journey to success was doing all of that myself. You know, they supported me and they were there for me and they were proud of me, but if you're first generation, it's completely unknown.
And then what did you study in school?
I tell this to my students. So the model that I did have of someone who in my eyes was wealthy would probably have been my grandfather. He was a CPA, he owned his own CPA business, and he drove a Mercedes and they traveled to Europe. And so my eyes, they were rich, right? They were rich. Now as a grown-up, I realized, well, they were probably upper middle class, you know, but he was a CPA. So my path to getting rich was to be a CPA, but I failed accounting 3 times. 3 times. I put 2 fingers up. Yeah, maybe that's why I failed accounting 3 times. And it was Sac State where the counselor said to me, maybe you're not going to be an accountant. And that pissed me off. I was like, how dare she say that? But I realized that I had a skill in communicating with people. I had a skill of public speaking, and to follow my skill set, my undergrad was in communications. And I really feel like that was a framework for my success, and even as a framework of success as a professor, because I have that formal background in public speaking.
From communications into the wine business, or corporate America, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
Were you immediately stepping into the wine business, or did you get some random job out of college? Okay.
No, I am originally from Sonoma County, went to Sac State. My first job out of college was AT&T. It was actually AT&T Wireless. Again, this is late 90s.
It still exists.
It still exists, but cell phones were, again, for the rich people.
Little
Yes, remember, Motorola's were a big deal back then. This is back when you had a text and go, 7777777444444. Do you remember?
Yeah,
Do you?
Okay. No, my dad had one, girl.
Your dad had one, okay. Yeah. I worked for AT&T Wireless. I did pretty well with them.
Were you in sales, or what were you doing?
I started as an operator, 511. So when you call support, that's how I started right out of college. But quickly got into sales, right? I had the gift of gab, had that communication background, and I did really well in sales. This is during the dot-com boom, and so I was making hand over fist. I mean, I'm in my early 20s, I have a sports car, I own my own condo, really successful. Then I saw the writing on the wall when the dot-com crash happened, and when companies were calling and said, I need to cancel the lines. And I'm like, okay, which ones? All of our Portland lines need to be canceled. And so I saw, this isn't going so well for me. So I got to ride that wave. I had a lot of success with the dot-com boom. Our corporate client was Robert Mondavi Winery. Okay. And they invited their corporate sales reps to Music in the Vineyards.
Nice.
I'm in my early 20s, and I'm sitting in this beautiful location in the Napa Valley.
Oakville.
In Oakville. And I'm sitting across the table from a woman who is like, you would be perfect in wine sales. And I'm like, ha 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 ha. I know that Merlot is red and Chardonnay is white. And that's about all I knew about wine. Again, this is the early 2000s. It wasn't what it is today, the wine industry. And she says, that's all you have to know. You're going to be great. And so she got me a side gig job on every other Saturday pouring wine at Visa Tui Winery.
Nice.
And I would drive from Sacramento to St. Helena, and I was like, this is real, and this is a good gig. And I think I'm going to quit my corporate job that paid me really well, and I think I'm going to pursue an wine industry. And my parents are like, you're going to do what? What, Claudette? And they come from a generation where you get a good job, you stay with them, and you retire with them, right? Why would I leave a good corporate job to go work for some winery in St. Helena? And there's that entrepreneurial spirit, there's that risk-taking. I was young, and I packed up and moved to Napa and started working at Visa Tui Winery. I think they were hesitant to hire me because I was making pretty good money, and they weren't going to pay me what I was making at AT&T. So I poured wine. So I poured wine for 2 years. I was a wine tender for 2 years. So they knew me. They knew who I was. I was successful at that. But when I wanted to work full-time for them, I had decided that I wanted to be full-time in the wine industry. There was some hesitation. I think they knew I could do the job, but they couldn't pay me what I was being paid for AT&T. And I remember saying to them, sometimes you need to take a step backwards to make 2 leaps forward. And I was so right. It was the right move for me. It was the best thing that I did for my career pathing, was to leave AT&T corporate and into the wine industry.
Okay, and then kind of getting into your mindset, is the entrepreneurial spirit really the thing that drove you to have like that tolerance of the risk? Because sometimes people, like, that idea alone, as I've said, makes them shit their pants. Some people are like, I would never do that.
I know. And I had parents telling me, don't do that. You're making the wrong choice. You went to college, you have a good career, you're doing well, ride the wave. And that is the entrepreneur mindset, right? Is to know here's the best way to talk about it. And I know you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't stop the pool, and you have to listen to the pool, and you have to be in tune with it. And I feel it, and I hear it, and all I know is I just have to follow it. And I don't know what it means or why I'm doing it. and everybody's telling me I'm not making the right choices, but I follow it. And that was the pull. The pull was get out of AT&T and go to the wine industry. Okay. I took a huge pay cut.
How did you in your head know that that was the right decision?
You don't.
Okay, because you're getting pulled towards it. But I'm sure you get there, you start kind of scraping by. Like in your head, is there really a plan, or are you just showing up every day trying your hardest?
You just show up every day and try your hardest and know it's going to work out, or maybe it's not, but you're going to figure it out, right? That's what I did. I figured it out pretty good.
Okay, so let's talk about you figuring it out then. So what's your progression there? Because you went to school for communications, you end up in marketing. So
well, that's not that I didn't end up in marketing right away.
Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about.
So I met the person at Music in the Vineyards. They're like, hey, you'd be perfect. You can sell wine on the weekends. So still had the AT&T job, drove every other Saturday to Visa Tui, poured wine. Then I decided I wanted to get out of AT&T, so they hired me as an office manager. So I was hired to come in, and I was also hired to come in to change the culture in the back house. We called it the back house, because they were having some real dynamic and relationship problems. Yes, my job was to make sure the phone calls were getting answered, manage the wine club team, manage the receptionist, but I really took it above and beyond, and what more can I do? How can I be successful in this role? I was really lucky to work for an organization that allowed me to grow and really encouraged me to have that entrepreneur spirit just as an office manager, but also to model what it means to own a multi-million-dollar winery and be the most visited winery in the Napa Valley for all those years. I helped open Castello di Amorosa. I mean, it's a pretty big accomplishment, and that was something that I learned in my 20s and 30s. So I really got to see what it took to be successful in business. Then I created my own position. So I went from office manager to business development. And part of that business development role was really to do a lot of outreach, do a lot of networking.
To who? Who are you like?
That's really interesting. So people think that Visa Tui Winery is so successful because we have the sweet wines, or Visa Tui is so successful because we had the deli. We worked for that success. We were boots on the ground. So every month we would go to the different concierges, we'd go to every hotel, we'd go knock on doors, and we would ask for the business. And even though we were successful and we were seeing success, we never stopped the grind. And I think that's so important, that you have to continue to hustle, you have to continue to tell people who you are, what you're doing, or else people forget about you. And I think that's a misconception. Oh, they're such a cash cow. It's because we work hard for it and continue to ask for the business. So that was really my role, was the hustle outside of the winery, the hustle networking to the other hotels, networking with other wineries, networking with restaurants, really just reestablishing who we were, maybe changing perceptions of who we were, telling people about our new winemaking team or what new accolades we had, or all of the different things that Visa Tui has to offer. Absolutely, the internet was available, but it was pre-social media days. And nowadays I think you can do some of that grind and the hustle using social media, but you still have to knock on doors. You still have to shake hands. It was a good time to be in the wine industry. It was definitely fun. I was in my 20s and 30s, and it was my social outlet. Drank a lot of really good wine, ate a lot of really good food, met a lot of really cool people. So that was business development. And during that time, I had decided to go back to school. So I'd already had my master's degree, had my MBA, and that was during my time at Visa Tui. I went back and I got my MBA, but they really encouraged us to go back to school and to learn. And so I learned about the program at Napa Valley College, the Viticulture Winery Technology program. Now remember, I had an MBA, and I worked for a successful winery, but I really feel like the knowledge that I gained at Napa Valley College and the knowledge that I gained in enology and viticulture, things that I never had studied before. I knew that I liked wine, but I didn't know how it, exactly it was made and the science behind it. But I feel like my degree here, so I went back and got a degree here at Napa Valley College, really was the catalyst to lead me to the next level of becoming a vice president for a multi-million-dollar winery.
I want to pick something out that you talked about. that you guys were boots on the ground, which would have been what, early 2000?
By the time I had my business development position, I'm going to call it 2004, 2005.
And then do you guys think you experienced such a level of success because you were the only ones doing it, or like really going for it?
We definitely, absolutely modeled the way for so many things. This is where,
because now it seems like the norm, right?
Dario Satui, I really have to say, like Dario Satui had that foresight for direct to consumer. This is when everybody laughed at him for being direct to consumer because everybody was going through the 3-tier system, and that was his business plan, and he always kept that business plan. We did, I mean, absolutely 100% model that way of business, and also boots on the ground. I think other wineries were just waiting for the customers to come to them.
It's not going to happen.
And right, exactly.
So it almost reminds me of like guerrilla marketing, right? I mean,
it still works. I mean, still to this day, right? We absolutely do. I believe in digital marketing, yes, but do I believe in shaking hands and referrals? 100% yes. And you and I have talked about this. The art of networking, having a mentorship, and talking to people and asking for the business is a real skill set and a real art. And I think the younger generation is losing that art because you're hiding behind social media or your phone or TikTok. I mean, I work with young people, I work with students. This is what I'm teaching them. Push yourself out of your comfort zone and go out there and network. I really learned that skill and honed in on that skill at Satui.
And then as you become VP, how do you learn about systems and marketing and all that? Because you didn't really have a base in it, right? Because in school you didn't really study marketing, it's more communication.
Right, I didn't study marketing, but I had leaders and the business owners at Satui Winery who really believed in me. And we had the budget that we could try new things. At this point, you know, the internet, I was really one of the leading team members that helped bring internet sales to Satui. When I started there, it was faxed orders. I mean, I started during faxed orders, and then we brought it to e-commerce, which was a big deal. To sell wine online was a huge deal. So I was part of the team that built the first e-commerce store there. So we've evolved, and so I was hands-on doing it. I learned by doing. Again, did I go to school for that? No, we didn't have school for how to do an e-commerce store at college. That didn't exist. But I had the mindset. I really learned digital marketing through just doing. In those days when social media first came out, we didn't go to school for that. And in those days, you didn't have to pay to play. So it was about putting out content and putting out content, and seeing what works and what didn't work, and you know, looking at the numbers and analyzing things. That's how I learned. How I continue to learn, again, because I've never been formally trained in digital marketing, is just staying up to date. You know, watching, learning, doing. The game changes every day. So even if you went to college for digital marketing, by the time you graduate, the game has changed. Something's new, something's different. So you never can stop learning. I think also my students teach me. I can, at least when they're telling me how they're using a platform, I can say, what if you did it this way? Can you imagine if you did this, 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 and this? And so we could talk together. But they're absolutely teaching me what's new, latest, and greatest.
And as a professor, how do you feel about the idea of doing marketing versus learning marketing textbook-wise in the classroom, etc.?
That's an interesting question, because I teach this. And I think it's so embedded in me. I mean, I've been doing this now for 30 years that I know it. I don't know all the systems and I don't know all the platforms, but I still understand the psychology of marketing. Doesn't matter if you're selling wine or you're selling a pencil or you're selling a book. You still have to get into the psychology of the problem that you solve and why somebody needs to buy it. It still have to get into the psychology of understanding who your target audience is and what their needs are, and anticipating their needs and communicating that needs. Doesn't matter what you're selling or what platform you're selling it on. The psychology of marketing, that game hasn't changed. It's just how we communicate the message. Maybe that game is changing every day.
Because that's really a lot what you teach of, right? Like, is marketing for entrepreneurs or to help businesses actually grow? But jumping ahead a little bit, like, what is your personal approach when marketing wine? And I'm just talking as a former VP, I should say. What's your approach to really marketing wine? What do you think works, doesn't work? is dumb, isn't dumb. Like
we've talked about this.
Okay, yeah, we have.
A Napa Cabernet is a Napa Cabernet is a Napa Cabernet. To the average wine consumer, a Napa Cabernet is a Napa Cabernet is a Napa Cabernet. In fact, you interviewed Paul Wagner, and he said something very similar.
Same thing. It really pissed people off on LinkedIn. But it's...
I mean, we're marketers. We're not winemakers.
Yeah,
so as a winemaker, you want to think that your oak-aged barrel makes it different than this, or your terroir makes it better than this. But to the average wine consumer, who is America, right, it's all the same.
Yeah.
So how are we going to position ourselves, our unique selling proposition, what makes us different? And it is, and this is Paul Wagner, I mean, I learned from Paul Wagner as well, I took the same class. What is our story? And why does our story make us different than the next person? And that is the psychology of marketing, really understanding what the consumer wants to hear and telling that story. And this has evolved over the last 20, 30 years. You have to remember that when I first started in wine, only fancy people drank wine, right? This is before it was in everybody's hand. Now, and the narrative back then was, red wine is healthy for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the narrative has changed. Now, it's very common in American households to drink wine. It's very common. It's very available for us to drink wine from all over the world. The narrative has also changed that it's not so healthy for you. Whether it's true or not true, that's the narrative right now. So, the way that the wineries have to tell the story is a little different. And so I think that's the key right now, is the storytelling and what is positioning that Cabernet different than the next cab or whatever varietal that you're making.
Okay, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit even more. So some people might call this the death of the wine industry with all the news and doom and gloom that's going on. If you were in the VP position again, how would you position yourself to ride the wave of what's going on right now?
I can't answer that right now because I'm out of the wine industry.
Yeah.
What I can answer is how I would approach that.
Yeah.
And that is talking to our consumers, talking to our target audience.
Very simple.
Asking questions, whether that's in a survey, whether that's in a focus group, getting people together and understanding what they want based on who it is that you're trying to target. Maybe you don't want the average wine consumer. And there are a lot of wineries out here that will say, Visa Tui Winery can take the average wine consumer all day long. Fine with us, because it's, what's making us money. The bills, yeah. It pays the, I mean,
and more.
It buys castles across, the world. So that's fine. We'll take the average wine consumer. So maybe you want to position yourself that we're not interested in the average wine consumer. We only want this wine consumer. Well, then what story are you going to tell? And what are their needs? What problem are you solving for them? And what do they want? We have to ask those questions. We have to ask those questions to the younger generation. People who are now 21 years old, who grew up with wine in their house. But also, the narrative right now is non-alcoholic. Yeah. The narrative is THC, right? Cannabis. That is a huge threat to the wine industry. So we have to understand, why are people so interested in cannabis? What problem is that solving for you? So I don't know the answer, but I know how to get to the answer. You ask.
That's something so simple, it's often overlooked.
Well, the other thing is, as a marketer, you think you know your demographic.
True.
You think you know what they want. You think you know. And then you ask, and then the survey results come back, or the focus group comes back, and you're like, duh, of course, that was so simple, and that's right in front of me. Why didn't I see that? Or, of course, that's what they think. But you're so into it, and maybe sometimes you're so in the weeds that you forget about it, and they just have to tell you. And the answer was maybe there all along, but you didn't ask. It is something, you have to talk to your customers, or the customers that you want to have. You've got to talk to them and understand what they want.
During your time as a VP of marketing, when does the point come for you where you're like, I guess, fall out of love with it, or you decide that, let me backtrack. What does the point come then when you feel like you fall out of love with it, or maybe you just start thinking, what's next for me?
Interesting. As an entrepreneur, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
What's next? My mind always thinks that. And all of my successes, I'm at an age right now that you would think that I would think, wow, I did it. I did so much. And I make enough money now that I'm comfortable, the bills are paid, we travel, the cars are paid off, all of the things that you want and aspire to be. But it's not enough.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. There's always a new pull. I don't know when that's going to stop. So I've reached a success at a very successful winery, one of the only females on the team. I knew it was the highest level that I was going to go at the wine industry. I knew I wasn't going to be the president or the owner. I felt like I had more to give to the world, so what was next? And if I'm being truthfully honest, because it is my journey, what was next is marriage and motherhood. And that changed the game for me.
Of course.
My priorities completely changed. I knew to be the mother that I wanted to be, I also couldn't be a vice president of the most visited winery in the Napa Valley. I couldn't figure out how to balance those two. And women who do, I applaud you. I couldn't figure out in my role how I could be both. And to be able to be on the PTA and volunteer and be in the classroom and do all the things that I wanted to be as a mother. I had also been teaching as an adjunct at Napa Valley College. So at that point, I was VP of Visa Tui Winery. 1 day a week, I had toddlers, really young kids. I was also teaching the community college.
How did you segue into that?
Because I was good at...
Given the opportunity, I guess I should say.
I sought out the opportunity.
Okay.
Opportunity didn't fall in my lap. I'm grateful that I've had opportunities that have come my way, but that one I sought after. When I was going for my MBA, I didn't know why. Again, I went for the pull to get my master's, but I knew that I could teach at a community college level with the master's, and so I just wanted to try it out. Why not?
Sure.
Yes, I want to do something new. And I knew I was good with people, and I was good at teaching. Being a manager for a large operation, there's a lot of coaching and a lot of teaching, and I was good at it. So I started teaching business. 1 day a week, I would teach a night class. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the students. I fell in love with being on a college campus. The things that are just at the top of my head that I know, that I learned from the winery, I learned by doing, I realized that other people didn't know. People didn't know the things that were in my head that are just, of course that's how we do it. Of course this is what we do. And so when I realized that my knowledge could change lives, that's when the pull came. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm a mama. I want to be closer to home. I want to have a more flexible schedule that allows me to be different places when I need it to be. And I was good at it, and people told me I was good at it. So that's when I followed that next pull. But what I will tell you is I quit my VP job at a multi-million-dollar winery before I had the college gig lined up. I had told myself, I had made a goal that by the time my oldest son got to kindergarten, that I was no longer going to work at Visa Tui. I wanted to be in Napa. I wanted to be closer to my son's school. And I was able to do that because I had saved up 6 months worth of money.
Yeah, safety net.
I had a safety net. I didn't know when I was going to give notice. I didn't know how I was going to give notice. But I just knew by the time Cameron started kindergarten, I was going to be in a different job or just not working there anymore. Secretly, obviously, I was applying at other places. Of course, I was applying at other places, and I had an ego. I'm
a VP.
I'm a VP for the most visited winery in the Napa Valley. I have a degree in wine. I have an MBA. I'm the best candidate, and I couldn't get a job. I was applying, either I was overqualified or I just had to be on the under. I didn't want
just any job, or
I was going for jobs in the industry, but I didn't get hired. But I quit, and then I remember telling our vendor, I just want to let you know that I'm not going to be able to be your contact anymore because I gave notice. And she was like, oh really? Because I've been eyeing you for years. And it was just like that. All I had to do was make the jump, give notice, and then immediately, because I could talk about it and I could project that, I got a job immediately. So I had a transition job. So between Visa Tui and between the college, there was a 6-month transition job, which I'm incredibly grateful for. But I knew I was
your end goal.
Yeah, I knew what the end goal was.
During your transition, again, it's a VP position, and I think I know your answer here. But how scary was it? Because you saved up 6 months, which is a good safety net. But for some people, it might be like, that's not enough. I need a year, I need 2 years. So is it really just, again, your entrepreneur spirit that just was like, let's do it?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
The scariest part was telling my husband.
Oh.
Because I would drive to work and he would say, "It's not today, Claudette. It's not today. It's not today."
Yeah.
And when it was the day, because it came unexpectedly,
Yep.
I just knew that today was the right day that I needed to say it. I didn't drive to work knowing that, but it just happened to be that was the right time for me. And I remember the scariest part was calling my husband. And if you know my husband, I thought I was just, this is awful. He's going to divorce me. This is awful. And he said to me, "Everything's going to be okay. We're going to be okay."
Yeah.
And thank you, supportive husband. Everything was okay. But I had a partner. Not only did I have the 6 month savings, but we had double income. I had been planning it for a while. So was it risky? Yes. But was it a positive risk?
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
a strategic risk? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to make something that big of a change, you have to have, it has to be a strategic risk.
Yeah. Versus just dropping everything. And
especially because I had a mortgage and I had 2 kids.
Yeah, I think the kids
when you're
thing
20,
changes everything.
When you're 20, you might be able to do that. You know, when you can couch surf or go back to your parents' house, you
sleep
could
in
do
the
that.
car.
We sleep in the car,
Yeah.
exactly. But I had 2 kids and a mortgage, so
It wasn't that simple.
It wasn't that simple. Was it scary? The scariest part was telling my husband.
Like learning to be a professor.
Yeah.
We're just talking about that off camera. How does that process
Yeah.
go? I know people are telling you you're a good professor, but I'm sure before that moment you're kind of like, all right, how?
I love this story. So when I transitioned from the wine industry to academia, I was surrounded by academics. I remember thinking, oh, I want to be an academic. I'm an academic now. I have to talk a certain way. I have to dress a certain way. You know, I have to be this certain way. But I didn't know how to do that. I don't know how to be an academic. And so I was just authentically me. But I always felt like I didn't belong or I was different. I felt that. And then students started telling me, "You're different." And I'm like, shoot, I don't want to be different. I want to be an academic. You're not like my other teachers. I remember one time I went to Starbucks and I had to meet a community partner. She didn't know me. And when she's like, "Hi, are you Claudette?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You don't look like the way I thought you were going to look." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" She's like, "Well, you don't look like an academic." I was offended. Like, I was upset about that. And like, I wanted to be that. I used to be invited to, or I still am, invited to a lot of committees and a lot of meetings, and one day I had to turn it down. They asked me, "Can you be on this committee?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm already committed." And the person said to me, "That's too bad. We really need your voice." And so I finally asked, "What does that mean? What is my voice?" And she says, "You're not academic, and that's what we need." And it was this aha moment for me that I teach business and entrepreneurship, right? I am not an academic. I am a hustler. I'm an entrepreneur. I am, you know, unfiltered. I'm all those things, but that's what makes me a good business professor. And it was once I got over trying to be something that I'm not and realized you're doing it right is when I was like, oh yeah, I got this, and just never stopped.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes you so effective as a teacher, because in your journey of going through high school, teachers act a certain way, teach a certain way, and you're like transitioning to college, you're like, I don't want to like listen to you, but you're a cool teacher and you have a different experience and you present things in a way that's very understandable for a student.
Well, and I want to be relatable, and I want to tell you all of the things that I did wrong.
Yeah.
I've done lots of things wrong, you know, finances, all of those things. I want to be vulnerable with you because I'm here to help you change your life. And if I can coach you and if I can mentor you, and if that means I have to tell you that I'm not perfect, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's, to me, the gift that I have is to coach and to change lives.
So how much satisfaction do you get out of teaching the next wave of entrepreneurs, business owners, or even people who end up working in corporate America?
I can't tell you on a scale. It is so great. I can't give you a number. It is the best thing that ever happened to me. It is what fuels my soul. It is what brings me joy. Seeing other people be successful. Now that I'm years into it, having people text me or find me and tell me how impactful I was and how I changed their lives, just being me, just saying that one thing or that one vulnerable thing that I told you. You never know what you're going to say or do that changes lives. God, it feels good. It is the best feeling. I mean, I think that's why it feels good to be a parent, because you could be proud of, your work. I'm so proud of my students.
Now you have 3,000 kids.
I have 3,000 kids. Yes.
Yeah.
And I love seeing them out in the wild. I love now they're graduated. I've been doing it enough now that they are successful, and I know I have a part of that journey. They tell me.
Yeah. You had part of my journey too, and that's why we're here
I'm
today.
proud of you.
Okay, and then what about some success stories of like your past students? Is there outliers where you like were even blown away that, wow, I had a part in this?
So, what's interesting about some of my outliners is that they don't graduate.
Oh.
Because I will say it all day long, to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to have a master's degree. Yeah. I have probably one of my most successful students here in the Napa Valley didn't come to his final. And I remember texting him, like, what's up? Why aren't you here for your final? And he texted me back, I am so busy with clients that I can't come to the final. And I was like, I'm not mad at you, get it. And he's getting it. I think I give you the bug. I hope I give you the bug. I hope I give you goggles to see things differently. And I hope I encourage you. And if that means that you don't graduate, I'm okay with that. Even though I'm a supporter of college, I think it's important. And I have multiple degrees. I have lots of degrees. But there are some people out there that just need a little bit of help, need some guidance. I do believe that to be successful in business, you do need to have some guidance, whether that is having a mentor, working with the Small Business Development Center, taking some classes at the college, however that works. I think the most successful entrepreneurs know that they can't do it alone. They don't know everything. Surround yourself with people who do, and I feel like I'm part of that team. They surround themselves with people like me to tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Then help them get to the next level. Right?
And to help them get to the next level.
Okay, so now talk to me about some of your businesses and ventures. So we have author, obviously. We have DJ.
I feel like DJ is very much part of the story. I'm a professor. That's the job, that pays the bills. But I can't sit still. During COVID, that opportunity actually did fall in my lap. And there's a long story of how I got there. But I was asked to be a guest DJ. I was actually asked to be a guest DJ. And then they asked me to continue and continue and continue. And it was COVID, so I wasn't in front of students. I really missed being around people. I missed talking to people. So the opportunity to be on the radio and talk to thousands of people at the same time actually was no different than teaching on Zoom, because they're out there and they're listening, but they're
cameras off, no one responding.
Yeah, they're there. I think really, again, the entrepreneur spirit, I said yes, and I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. Because I was so scared. I was petrified. And even though I have a background in communications, right? I have a communications degree. Obviously, I have the gift of gab. I can talk.
And you're a professor. It's not like you're not talking to a bunch of people all the time.
I'm a public speaker.
Yeah.
And I would say that, but it wasn't until I got on the radio that I really honed in on my public speaking skills. I really think, and you always wonder, why do things come into your life? Why was there that pull? Why did that come to me? And I could not be more grateful for the 2 years that I spent on the radio. So it was just a part-time job. I just did it on the side, in addition to everything else. I always knew that I wanted to write a book, and I always knew I wanted to be an author, and I thought this would open new doors for me, and it absolutely did. What I didn't realize is that it was going to take me to the next level of public speaking and to be able to communicate. And I cannot tell you, I guess the one lesson that I took from that is when an opportunity comes your way, even if you're so scared, say yes.
Jump.
Now that was scary.
Yeah.
That was more scary than telling my husband that I quit my
Really?
job. Oh.
Yeah.
Being on the radio, live, there's no editing in radio.
That's true.
You're live. And with all the people who want to troll you, or if you say one thing wrong, or
it turns into a...
that's what I was most afraid of. I was most afraid of saying something wrong, not because I'm racist or I'm this or I'm that, but because you say one thing and someone can just completely be so hurt by it.
Yeah.
And that's not my intention. It's not who I was. That's what I was most scared of. But also, You're live.
You're live.
It was live.
This isn't
radio.
live.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like, I know you're going to make me sound good and edit me out. I'm on the radio, and I've said some dumb things, and I've said wrong things, and that's embarrassing. Especially, you know, I pride myself on, I'm a smart person. People perceive me as a smart person, and you say something so dumb on air. If you would have asked me in 2019 to be on this podcast, I would have told you no.
Yeah.
2 years in radio.
Whatever.
Bring it. What day do you want to meet?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So it seems like it built your kind of your self-confidence a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
And then self-confidence to write a book or to start that journey?
So I actually left the radio because I knew where my passion was the book, and I couldn't do it all, right?
Yeah.
And then COVID was over.
And you had 2 kids.
And I had 2 kids, and and there's 2 questions that I would get asked the most. How did you become a radio DJ? And how do you manage your time? How do you possibly do all the things that you do? I knew that I wanted to write this children's book. When I had first started down the journey of being an author, I didn't know it was a children's book, but it was this aha moment for me when I was like, I'm already doing it. I had been volunteering in my son's classroom. Remember, that was one of my goals of leaving the winery, was to be in the classrooms. They had asked me to do after school enrichment classes, and I'm like, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a Pinterest mom. I don't do arts and crafts. I'm not playing with Play-Doh, and I'm certainly not doing garbage art. But I had realized that I was teaching my own kids how to be entrepreneurs. My son was 6. He owns his own business. He was a dog walker. I was teaching my kids financial management. I was teaching them the entrepreneur mindset. And so that was this aha moment for me to teach after school classes on leadership to littles and entrepreneurship to 5th graders. So I had been doing that through COVID. I'd been doing that for years and years because my kids were in elementary school. And I was reading stories to these kids. I would take the stories and I would turn them into leadership lessons. I would do discussion questions. I would make up my own discussion questions, and then I would do a learning activity. The same way I teach grown-ups. I tell them, you know, we do the lesson, we debrief, we have discussion questions, and then we do a hands-on activity. It's my same formula that I do at the college, but I was doing it with littles, and I was reading other people's books. And I'm like, why am I reading other people's books? Why don't I write the book? So because I'm an educator, it was important for me that it had a story. I call it the entrepreneur mindset. Academics will call it social emotional learning. Whatever you call it, it's taking positive risks, tenacity. She's on a bike, she falls, she has to get back up even when she hurts herself. Positive self-talk. And because I'm an educator, what I did was at the end it has discussion questions, and it also has learning activities in the book.
And then how's that journey been? Because I mean, you've been on the road a little bit.
I have.
Reading to people, going to bookstores, etc.
So again, the ego, right? Oh, I'm an educator. I have multiple degrees. I'm a mama.
I'm a former VP.
I'm a former VP. I thought that when I wrote the pitch for the book, that every major publisher was going to want to
knocking on your door.
Oh, they were going to come knocking on my door, right? Because I'm successful. And I spent a year querying and heard no's, a lot of rejection. And I remember thinking, I don't want to self-publish because I don't want to be at the farmer's market selling my book. So I got connected. Again, surround yourself with people that know what you don't know. And I remember talking to this woman on the phone, and she was traditionally published. And I said, yeah, I don't want to self-publish. I want to traditionally publish because I don't want to have to sell my own book. And she said, ha, 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 silly girl. Doesn't matter if you're traditionally published or self-published. You have to sell your own book. And I don't know, if she said that to me, I was like, I know how to sell things. I know how to sell. No matter if you're selling pencils, books, or wine, I know how to market. So that's when I decided I was going to self-publish. I know everything that I know. I had to build up that clientele. I had to own my own email list. I had to establish myself as a subject matter expert now and teaching the entrepreneur mindset to kids. So I took years building up that brand. I knew how to create a new brand, you know, a personal brand. I mean, I know the formula. So by the time I launched the book, I mean, everybody knew I was launching it, and I go big or go home.
Yeah.
So I go big.
And then now you're here today.
Yeah.
Is there plans to continue and write more, or like
I have to,
through your experience, like what's next? Then,
Yeah.
like, are you going to be obviously you're going to continue teaching, but
Oh yeah, I will teach until I retire.
and then do you plan to continue like being an author, or kind of what's the plan with that?
So Someone related it to the music industry. Musicians, it's not the album sales that make the money, it's the concerts. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I had always learned that it's not the book that makes you the money. I mean, unless you're, Harry Potter. The royalties on this is so small, the margins are not great. It is my business card in the door. So it is my new business card that establishes me as, I've already established myself as a subject matter expert teaching children the entrepreneur mindset and teaching leadership to littles. But this is what's getting me the conferences, the keynote speaking, doing workshops, and that's where the money is.
Yeah.
So that's what's next. I've actually, this year, 2025, I've now transitioned and shifted the branding to be a speaker.
You got some gigs already this year? You're working on it?
Yes, I should. Yeah. I'm like thinking, do I have gigs? Yes, I have paid gigs. I am doing it. I'm not doing it on the stage that I want yet, right? So TED Talk maybe, Ed Talk. I'll get there. I'll get to the big stage, but absolutely. I mean, it's keynote speaking is something that I'm working on.
And now that you're a business teacher, and maybe some people that watch this are entrepreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs, or maybe are students of yours, and if you are, subscribe and like, which I forgot to say at the beginning. But what are some common mistakes that you see when people start businesses, or why businesses fail?
They try to do it all.
Okay.
So you're good at something. You are good at whatever it is that you're good at. So you want to have a business to do that. You don't also have to be the marketer. Are you good at marketing? Maybe not. That's what we're good at. So outsourcing, I think people don't budget for outsourcing. Yeah. They try to be everything, and you can't. You can't scale if you try. You can't be everywhere. Another thing is, I think businesses or people who start businesses, maybe it's ego, I can't, we all have it. If you really want to scale, you have to understand that in order to scale, other people have to help you. It's the only way to scale. So I think outsourcing is key. I think that's what you have to budget for that. You have to budget to pay for whatever it is that you need to budget for. Other people have to help you. I think some people think they have a great idea, and so they just go out and do it without getting any education. I think they're listening to TikTok influencers and paying a lot of money. Sorry, but they're paying a lot of money on TikTok, and they're not subject matter experts.
Yeah,
they're
being
influencers.
set up for failure.
Get some sort of formal education. YouTube is great. Yes, do I think YouTube is great? Formal education could just be working in that industry, working alongside someone who does it successfully. You don't have to tell that person that one day you're going to be their competition and you're going to stomp them. Just learn everything. A mentor, small business development center, your local community college. You need to have some sort of foundation for you to grow.
And could you talk about learning on someone else's dime?
Yes,
Yeah.
I talk about that, absolutely. So a lot of young people, they want to be entrepreneurs and they want to do it now. They think that right now. And I'm here to tell you, learn on somebody else's dime. Make the mistakes on somebody else's dime. Use somebody else's budget. I don't want you to fail. You can learn a lot by working for somebody else. It doesn't even have to be the industry that you want to be in, but someone who's doing something successfully, learn from that and make your mistakes there on their dime. Absolutely. And then spend some time in industry before you go off and do it on your own. And I think a lot of young people want it now.
Yeah.
And
it's a lesson I learned.
Right?
Yeah.
They see overnight success. I think social media is a big culprit in that.
Absolutely.
And it's not real. But not always. I mean, yes, some of it is
rare occasion.
It's rare, and yes, it happens, but I don't think they understand how much. There's no overnight success. Yeah. It is years and years of grind and years of hard work before you get that success. Do I believe in passive income? 100%. Does it take years of grinding to get to passive income? 100%. Social media doesn't tell all.
No, it warps people's expectations, or if you're not making six figures in a month, then you're a failure, and that's it, right? And I think it sets up people again for failure because their expectations are really warped to what reality actually is,
right?
Or what business actually is.
I'm here to support you. I will never say you have a bad idea, but I will support you in your growth and support you in finding out is this feasible? I will never tell you, because sometimes I hear ideas and I'm like, that's the crappiest thing I've ever heard. But I am not gonna bring you down. I'm gonna teach you how to ask the questions and how to figure it out, because in that pathway of how to figure it out, you're gonna find the right solution. You're gonna find what is better. And maybe it was in my head the whole time, but I enable other people to find that for themselves.
And it's a learning experience.
It's all part of the learning experience.
Any final thoughts, things that you want to say to our audience? Like you mentioned, you'll find your website as well as your book in the description below.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for
being
asking
on.
me to be here. As a student, I value you as a student because you get it, you know it, you validated, things that I was saying, but I've learned so much from you. I love watching your success. I love watching the growth of this podcast, and I love what you're doing. So you're one of my success stories. I'm proud of you. But it's an honor to be sitting next to you, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. You guys can find all information below. She's also a professor at Napa Valley College, where you can take her classes.